Hey, what is up, everyone? Today we got a pretty unique story. It's narrated by Frederick Surrey. Get cozy and watch till the end, guys.
There are fates that transcend death itself, transformations so profound that mortality becomes nothing more than a distant memory, a shadow cast by something far greater and infinitely more terrible. In the grim darkness of the far future, where there is only war and the laughter of thirsting gods echoes through the void, there exists a state of being that represents the ultimate reward and the ultimate damnation. To speak of demon princes is to speak of power incarnate, of beings who have traded every shred of their humanity for immortality and strength beyond mortal comprehension. They stand as monuments to ambition fulfilled and souls forever damned, towering over the battlefields of the 41st millennium like living gods carved from nightmare and warp stuff. When you witness a demon prince stride across a battlefield, the very air seems to thicken with dread. These are not mere warriors, enhanced by blessings or mutations. These are beings who have undergone a fundamental transformation, who have been unmade and remade in the image of powers that exist beyond the boundaries of sanity and reason. Their forms vary wildly, each one unique, each one terrible, but all share certain undeniable characteristics. They are massive, hulking creatures that dwarf even the already superhuman space marines. They radiate an aura of wrongness that can break the minds of ordinary humans before combat even begins. And they wield power that can reshape reality itself, tearing through armor and flesh with equal ease, bending the laws of physics to their corrupted will. But to truly understand how strong a demon prince is, we must first understand what they are, and where they come from, and what price they paid for their ascension. We must delve into the transformation itself, examine the terrible journey that leads a mortal soul down the path to demonhood. We must look at their physical capabilities, their supernatural powers, and compare them to the other mighty beings that wage war across the stars. Only then can we begin to grasp the true magnitude of their strength, the awesome and terrifying power that makes them among the most dangerous entities in the entire Warhammer 40,000 universe. The story of every demon prince begins the same way, with ambition. Not the small ambitions of ordinary mortals who dream of wealth or status, but something far more consuming, far more terrible. It begins with a soul that looks upon the material universe and finds it insufficient, inadequate, limiting. It begins with someone who gazes into the abyss of chaos and sees not horror, but opportunity, not damnation, but transcendence. These individuals, whether they begin as Chaos Space Marines, corrupted Imperial officials, or even stranger origins, share an insatiable hunger for power that drives them to commit acts of such monumental evil that they catch the attention of the dark gods themselves. And that attention, that terrible regard from entities of pure malevolence and infinite power, is where the true journey begins. The path to ascension. From mortal to immortal. The path to becoming a demon prince is not a simple one, nor is it guaranteed. For every champion of chaos who achieves the ultimate reward of demonhood, countless thousands fail, their ambitions ending in death or worse. The transformation into a demon prince is the pinnacle of achievement for those who serve the ruinous powers, the ultimate prize that all champions of chaos strive toward, knowing full well that the journey will likely destroy them long before they reach that lofty goal. To even begin this journey, one must first attract the attention of the chaos gods. This is no simple feat. The dark gods are not easily impressed. They are entities of such vast scope and terrible power that individual mortal lives mean nothing to them. Entire worlds can burn, billions can die, and these events might register as nothing more than a momentary ripple in the great ocean of souls that feeds their power. To stand out from this endless tide of suffering and ambition, a champion of chaos must perform deeds of truly extraordinary magnitude. Might consider what this means in practical terms. A Chaos Space Marine might slaughter an entire planetary population, sacrificing billions to their chosen god. They might corrupt and turn dozens of Imperial worlds, spreading the taint of chaos across entire sectors. They might lead armies in campaigns that last for centuries, waging war without pause, without mercy, without relent. They might master forbidden sorceries that tear holes in reality itself, or develop such skill in combat that they become living legends, even among their corrupted brethren. The accomplishments required are staggering, the level of dedication absolute, the depths of depravity unfathomable. But attracting attention is only the first step. The Chaos Gods are capricious and cruel, and their favor is as unpredictable as the warp itself. Or one champion might serve faithfully for centuries, committing atrocities beyond counting, only to be cast aside when their god grows bored or displeased. Another might catch divine favor after only a few short years of service, elevated for reasons that remain mysterious even to other servants of chaos. The gods do not explain their choices, do not justify their decisions. They simply act according to whims and plans that mortal minds cannot comprehend. And then there is the transformation itself, a process so horrific that most who undergo it do not survive. When a chaos god decides to elevate one of their champions to demonhood, the champion's body undergoes rapid and catastrophic changes. Their flesh begins to mutate at a frightening pace, bones lengthening and thickening, muscles swelling to monstrous proportions, and organs shifting and transforming into something altogether alien. The pain is said to be beyond description, every nerve ending screaming as the body is forcibly reshaped according to the will of a god. Most champions die during this transformation. Their bodies simply cannot withstand the changes being wrought upon them. Organs fail, bones shatter, flesh tears and splits as it tries to accommodate mutations that biology was never meant to support. Their minds fracture under the weight of sensations no mortal consciousness was designed to process. They die screaming, their ambitions unfulfilled, their service rewarded with nothing but agony and oblivion. But some survive. Some possess the strength of will, the raw determination, or perhaps simply the favor of their god to endure the transformation. Their bodies stabilize, yet the mutations coalescing into a new form that is no longer truly mortal. They emerge reborn, remade, their consciousness now housed in a vessel of flesh and warp energy that transcends the limitations of biology. They have become something more than human, more than mortal, more than merely alive. They have become demon princes. Yet there is another fate that awaits those who fail to achieve full demonhood, a fate that some would argue is worse than death. These are the chaos spawn, beings who undergo the transformation, but whose bodies and minds cannot sustain it. Their mutations continue unchecked, their forms warping and twisting into masses of writhing flesh, tentacles, eyes, mouths, and appendages that serve no purpose. Their minds shatter completely, us leaving behind nothing but mindless beasts driven by base instincts and uncomprehending rage. They become cautionary tales, living proof of what happens when ambition outstrips capability, when the gods grant their attention, but not their blessing. The transformation varies depending on which god has granted their favor. A champion elevated by Khorne, the blood god, will find themselves transformed into a towering engine of slaughter, their form optimized for nothing but combat and killing. Massive horns might sprout from their skull, their skin might turn the color of dried blood, and every aspect of their new body will be designed for maximum lethality in close combat. The blessing of Khorne grants tremendous physical strength, pushing already superhuman capabilities to truly monstrous levels. A servant of Nurgle, the grandfather of plagues, undergoes a very different transformation. Their body swells with disease and corruption, becoming bloated and grotesque, yet paradoxically resilient. Flesh that should rot and fall away instead becomes impossibly tough, able to shrug off wounds that would kill lesser beings. They become walking plagues, their very presence spreading pestilence and decay, their touch bringing infection and death. The transformation is revolting to behold, but the power it grants is undeniable. Those who served Tzeentch, the architect of fate, might find their transformation takes on bizarre and unpredictable forms. Extra eyes might open across their body, granting them impossible insight. Their flesh might shimmer with iridescent colors that hurt to look upon, as they gain mastery over sorcery that eclipses anything they knew in mortal life, able to manipulate the warp with a facility that makes them among the most dangerous psykers in the galaxy. The transformation is often the most varied among Tzeentchian demon princes, reflecting the ever-changing nature of their patron. And finally, those who pledge themselves to Slaanesh, the Prince of Pleasure, undergo transformations that are both beautiful and terrible. Their features might become impossibly perfect, their movements fluid and hypnotic, their very presence intoxicating to those who witness them. But beneath that beauty lies something profoundly wrong, mutations that speak to excess and obsession taken to their ultimate extreme. They gain speed and agility beyond any mortal creature. They are able to move with a terrible grace that makes them devastating opponents in combat. The process of ascension is not always immediate. Sometimes it happens in a single cataclysmic moment, the champion's form exploding and reforming in seconds of excruciating transformation. Other times it is gradual, mutations accumulating over years or even decades as the champion proves their worth again and again, each deed earning another blessing until finally they cross some invisible threshold and achieve full demonhood. There are cases documented in imperial records of champions who seem to transcend mortality through rituals of immense power and sacrifice. Lorgar, Primarch of the Wordbearers, is said to have used incredible amounts of warp energy to facilitate Angron's transformation, as performing a ritual of such magnitude that it had never been seen before and might never be seen again. Fulgrim's ascension came after consuming the souls of countless Elder, using spirit stones of immense power to fuel his transformation. These are exceptional cases, showing that for some, the path to demonhood can be accelerated through acts of supreme sacrifice or the acquisition of artifacts of terrible power. But regardless of how it happens, regardless of which god grants their blessing, the end result is the same. The mortal dies, and something else is born. Something that will exist as long as chaos itself endures. Something that can never truly be killed, only banished. Something that has become a living weapon in the eternal war between the material universe and the powers of the warp. And once the transformation is complete, and once the new demon prince looks upon reality with eyes that can now perceive dimensions mortals cannot imagine, they discover just how much power they have been granted. Physical might and combat prowess. When a demon prince takes to the battlefield, their mere presence reshapes the conflict around them. These are not creatures that slip quietly through the shadows or rely on subtlety and deception. They are avatars of destruction, beings whose physical form has been purpose-built by a god to dominate, to destroy, to kill. Every aspect of their physical being has been enhanced beyond what should be possible, pushing past the already formidable capabilities of Chaos Space Marines into realms that make them peer to some of the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy. The first thing one notices about a demon prince is their sheer size. These are not simply large beings. They are massive, towering constructs of flesh, bone, and warp energy that stand several times the height of a mortal human. A typical demon prince might stand anywhere from 12 to 20 feet tall, though some grow even larger. Their bulk is proportionate to their height, each one a mountain of muscle and unholy power that radiates menace like heat from a forge. When they move, the ground shakes. When they speak, their voices carry the weight of otherworldly authority that can break the spirits of those who hear it. But size alone does not make them formidable. What truly sets demon princes apart is the density of power contained within that massive frame. Their strength is legendary, capable of tearing space marines in power armor apart with their bare hands, crushing tanks beneath their tread, and wielding weapons that would require multiple mortals just to lift. They can punch through ceramite armor as easily as paper, their blows carrying force that can shatter bones and pulp organs even through the most advanced protection. When a demon prince swings a weapon, whether it be a hell-forged sword, a massive axe, or simply their clawed fists, the impact is cataclysmic. The weapons they wield are themselves artifacts of terrible power. Demon princes often carry hell-forged blades, weapons infused with the essence of the warp that can cut through reality itself. These weapons are not simply sharp or well-crafted. They are fundamentally wrong, existing partially in multiple dimensions at once, able to harm not just the body, but the soul. When such a weapon strikes, it tears at the very essence of its victim, on inflicting wounds that resist healing, that burn with unnatural fire, that carry corruption in every cut. Many demon princes bear demon weapons, artifacts so powerful that they are revered even among the forces of chaos. These are not mere tools, but living extensions of a champion's will, inhabited by bound demons that hunger for souls and blood. A demon weapon might grant its wielder additional strength, the ability to drain life force from enemies, or powers that vary based on which god the weapon serves. In the hands of a demon prince, already formidable in combat, a demon weapon transforms them into something truly unstoppable. Consider the combat capabilities granted by their patron gods. A demon prince of Khorne gains bonuses to their strength that make them even more devastating in melee combat. When they charge into battle, when they engage in the desperate fury of close-quarters fighting, their power increases even further, fed by the blood god's favor. They can wade through enemy ranks like a scythe through wheat, each swing of their weapon claiming multiple victims, their rage and bloodlust giving them endurance that allows them to fight for hours without tiring. The tactical acumen these beings possess should not be underestimated. While they may be demons now, most demon princes began their existence as mortals, often as space marines who had spent centuries or even millennia honing their skills in warfare. They retain all of their tactical knowledge, all of their combat experience, but now possess it in a form that can implement strategies with strength and abilities that their mortal selves could never have dreamed of. Yet they combine the raw physical power of demons with the tactical sophistication of commanders who have led armies across countless battlefields. Their armor, if they choose to wear it, is not the powered ceramite of space marines, but something far more terrible. Some demon princes retain twisted versions of their former armor, power armor transformed by warp energies into something that exists partially outside normal space. Others have their very flesh transformed into an armored hide that provides protection surpassing any manufactured defense. This unholy armor can turn aside bolt rounds that would kill mortal champions, shrug off plasma fire that would vaporize normal flesh, and resist even the blessed weapons of the Imperium's most holy warriors. Speed is another factor that makes demon princes so dangerous. Despite their massive size, they move with a grace and quickness that seems impossible. Those who have faced them in combat and survived report that demon princes can close distances with shocking rapidity, their movements blurring as they charge across the battlefield. Some are gifted with wings, great membranous appendages that allow them to take to the air, diving down upon their enemies from above, or pursuing fleeing foes with relentless determination. A winged demon prince is even more dangerous than their ground-bound counterparts, possessing mobility that allows them to strike anywhere on the battlefield at will. Their combat prowess extends beyond simple physical might. Demon princes possess instincts honed by their divine transformation, able to predict enemy movements, sense threats before they materialize, and react to danger with speed that seems almost precognitive. In melee combat, they are among the most skilled fighters in the galaxy, their techniques refined by centuries of practice and enhanced by demonic reflexes that allow them to parry, dodge, and counter with superhuman precision. These combat instincts operate on multiple levels simultaneously. While their conscious mind might be focused on the immediate opponent before them, their demonic senses are tracking dozens of other threats, monitoring the flow of battle, identifying opportunities and dangers across the entire battlefield. This allows them to fight with a level of situational awareness that would overwhelm mortal minds. they can engage multiple opponents at once, not just through raw power, but through genuine tactical sophistication, while positioning themselves to prevent enemies from supporting each other, creating openings through feints and misdirection, exploiting terrain and circumstances in ways that demonstrate their retained tactical acumen. The psychological impact they have on the battlefield extends beyond simple fear. Daemon princes are living embodiments of humanity's deepest nightmares, creatures that should not exist yet do, violations of natural law given terrible life. When soldiers see a demon prince, they are not just witnessing a powerful enemy. They are confronting proof that the universe is not rational, that there are powers that transcend understanding and laugh at mortal concepts of order and justice. This existential horror can break even veteran warriors, can turn disciplined troops into panicked mobs. Ard can shatter unit cohesion before the first shot is even fired. The resilience of a demon prince is perhaps one of their most terrifying attributes. These are not beings that can be easily wounded. Their flesh, transformed by warp energies, possesses a toughness that makes conventional weapons largely ineffective. Bullets might penetrate their hide, but fail to reach vital organs that no longer exist in any conventional sense. Energy weapons might burn their flesh, but the wounds close almost as quickly as they are inflicted, the demonic essence within them refusing to be constrained by something as mundane as physical damage. They possess an invulnerable save, a supernatural resistance to harm that represents their demonic nature. The warp itself protects them, deflecting attacks that should kill them, turning aside blows that would fell any mortal creature. This protection is not absolute. Powerful enough weapons or attacks imbued with psychic energy can overcome it, but it makes them incredibly difficult to kill. Combined with their natural toughness and the fact that their physical form is essentially a construct of warp energy, held together by force of will and divine favor, a demon prince can sustain damage that would destroy entire squads of space marines and continue fighting. But perhaps what makes them most dangerous is not any single attribute, but the combination of all these factors. A demon prince is not just strong or fast or resilient. They are all of these things simultaneously, a perfect synthesis of physical might, combat skill, supernatural resilience, and tactical acumen. They are beings that can fight on equal terms with the greatest champions of the Imperium, that can duel with hero characters and legendary warriors and emerge victorious more often than not. When they lead armies into battle, their presence affects more than just the immediate combat around them. Demon princes often possess abilities that benefit nearby allies, granting them protection from enemy fire, emboldening them to fight with greater courage, or weakening enemy forces through auras of dread and corruption. A demon prince is not just a powerful individual combatant, but a force multiplier, their very presence on the battlefield shifting the tide of entire conflicts. Yet for all their physical might, for all their combat prowess and supernatural resilience, the true power of a demon prince extends far beyond what they can accomplish with blade and claw. Their connection to the warp grants them abilities that transcend the merely physical, powers that can reshape reality itself and bring destruction on a scale that no conventional warrior, no matter how skilled or strong, could ever hope to match. Warp powers and supernatural abilities. The transformation into a demon prince does not simply enhance the physical form. It fundamentally changes the recipient's relationship with reality itself. These beings exist simultaneously in the material universe and the warp, their consciousness touching upon dimensions that mortal minds cannot comprehend. This connection to the Imperium grants them powers that transcend anything possible through purely physical means, or abilities that can alter the very fabric of existence and turn the laws of physics into mere suggestions to be ignored at will. Every demon prince possesses some degree of psychic ability, though the nature and extent of these powers varies dramatically based on which god has granted them their ascension. Those who were already psychers in their mortal life find their abilities enhanced beyond measure. their connection to the warp deepened to the point where they can channel energies that would instantly annihilate lesser practitioners. But even those who possess no psychic talent in life gain at least some measure of supernatural power upon their transformation, the warp flowing through them by virtue of their new demonic nature. The specific powers granted vary according to the patron god. A demon prince of Tzinch, or the changer of ways, becomes a master of sorcery without equal. They can hurl bolts of warp fire that immolate their enemies, turning flesh to ash and armor to slag in seconds. They can manipulate probability itself, turning certain victory into devastating failure for their foes, while ensuring that even the most unlikely events work in their favor. They can see into the future with clarity that makes conventional planning obsolete, anticipating enemy movements before those enemies have even decided on their course of action. The spells available to a Tzinchian demon prince are drawn from the discipline of sorcery known as the Dark Hereticus, forbidden knowledge compiled over millennia by corrupted psychers and heretical scholars. These spells allow them to tear holes in reality, summon lesser demons to fight at their command, or curse their enemies with transformations that leave them twisted and broken. In battle, a demon prince of Tzinch is not just a physical threat, but a tactical nightmare, able to counter enemy plans before they unfold and adapt to any situation with supernatural foresight. A demon prince who serves Nurgle gains very different but equally terrifying powers. They become vessels of disease, their very presence spreading plague and corruption to everything around them. The air itself becomes toxic when they draw near, filled with invisible spores and bacteria that carry countless afflictions. Those who fight near a Nurglite demon prince find themselves weakening, their strength failing as illness takes hold, their reactions slowing as fever clouds their thoughts. The ground beneath their feet becomes tainted, plant life withering and dying, stone cracking and crumbling as decay spreads from their every footfall. These demon princes can call upon Nurgle's unique sorceries, spells that inflict disease and corruption upon their enemies. They might summon clouds of flies, so thick they block out the sun, each insect carrying plague that can fell even the mightiest warriors. They can cause flesh to rot and metal to rust with a gesture, aging decades in seconds. Their touch brings pestilence, and their breath carries contagion. Yet, paradoxically, they also possess tremendous resilience, their bodies so saturated with Nurgle's blessings that they can ignore wounds that would kill others. Toxins and poisons have no effect on them, their corrupted physiology immune to anything that might harm normal flesh. The servants of Slaanesh, the Prince of Excess, gain powers that are both seductive and deadly. They can move with speed that makes them almost impossible to track, blurring across the battlefield in displays of impossible grace and agility. Their psychic abilities often focus on manipulating the senses and emotions of their enemies, filling their minds with visions of exquisite pleasure or unbearable agony, both equally debilitating in combat. They can inspire unnatural desire in those who face them, causing enemies to hesitate, to doubt, to make fatal mistakes, as their thoughts are clouded by sensations they cannot control. A Slaaneshi Daemon Prince can strike with a number of attacks that seems impossible, their movements so fluid and rapid that they blur together into a continuous assault. They often fight first in combat, yet their supernatural speed allowing them to land killing blows before their opponents can even react. Their powers can enhance their allies as well, filling them with euphoria that drives them to fight with reckless abandon, feeling no pain, knowing no fear, consumed entirely by the moment of combat. And then, there are the demon princes of Khorne, beings who eschew sorcery in favor of raw physical domination. The blood god despises psychers and sorcery, viewing them as cowardly and weak. His demon princes do not typically wield psychic powers in the conventional sense. Instead, their connection to the warp manifests as pure enhancement of their martial abilities. They become the ultimate warriors, their strength pushed to levels that rival even other demon princes, their rage and bloodlust giving them endurance that allows them to fight indefinitely without tiring. A cornate Daemon prince radiates an aura of bloodthirsty fury that affects everyone around them. Allies find themselves filled with killing rage, fighting with increased ferocity and savagery. Enemies feel their courage wavering in the face of such primal, unfocused aggression. The Demon Prince themselves becomes faster and stronger the more they fight, feeding on the violence and bloodshed around them, growing more dangerous with each passing moment of combat. They gain bonuses when they charge, when they fight in close combat, when they engage in the kind of brutal, direct warfare that Horn favors above all else. Beyond these god-specific abilities, all demon princes share certain supernatural characteristics by virtue of their daemonic nature. They are immune to conventional fear and psychological warfare. Their minds, alien and transformed, cannot be broken by terror tactics that would send mortal soldiers fleeing. They possess an aura of dread that extends around them in a radius of several dozen feet, an oppressive presence that can break the courage of even veteran warriors. Ordinary humans who stand in the presence of a demon prince often find themselves paralyzed by fear, their weapons falling from nerveless fingers as their minds refuse to accept what they are seeing. They can perceive things that remain invisible to mortal senses. The warp opens itself to their awareness, allowing them to see demons and warp entities that remain hidden from normal vision. That they can sense psychic activity, detect the use of sorcery from great distances, and perceive the taint of chaos in souls and objects. This makes them nearly impossible to ambush or deceive through conventional means, as they can feel threats approaching before they arrive. Many demon princes possess the ability to summon lesser demons to fight at their command. With a gesture or a word of power, they can tear open the barrier between the warp and reality, allowing demonic entities to spill forth into the material universe. These summoned demons are bound to the demon prince's will, serving as troops and minions that can overwhelm enemy forces through sheer numbers, while the demon prince themselves focuses on more important targets.
You know, the more I research these topics for the channel, the more I'm struck by how deeply unsettling the concept of demon princes really is. It's not just the body horror or the violence, it's the complete erasure of identity. The person who wanted this power doesn't really get to enjoy it because they stopped being that person. What haunts me is imagining that moment right after transformation, when they first realize what they've actually become. Do they have that moment of clarity before their mind changes? Or does the shift happen so gradually they never notice until it's like far too late? The lore never quite answers that. And honestly, I think that kind of ambiguity makes it even more disturbing. But anyways, let's get back to the video.
The reality warping abilities of some demon princes extend even further. They might be able to teleport short distances, disappearing from one location and reappearing in another as they shift through the warp. They might be able to curse their enemies, marking them for destruction in ways that no blessing or protection can fully counter. They can corrupt and taint the areas where they fight, permanently scarring the physical universe with their presence, leaving behind zones where reality remains thin and twisted long after they have departed. Their demonic nature grants them a form of immortality that goes beyond simple physical resilience. When their physical form is destroyed in the material universe, they are not killed, but merely banished, their essence returning to the warp to slowly regenerate and reform. This process typically takes approximately 1,000 years, give or take. But it means that a demon prince is functionally immortal. They cannot be permanently killed by conventional means, cannot be erased from existence as long as the chaos gods themselves endure. This immortality comes with limitations, of course. While banished to the warp, a demon prince cannot influence events in the material universe. They must wait, patient or raging as their nature dictates, until they have recovered sufficient strength to manifest once more. But the knowledge that they will return, that any victory against them is at best temporary, makes them psychological weapons as effective as their physical ones. Imperial forces who defeat a demon prince know that their descendants, or their descendants' descendants, will likely face the same threat again, and there is something profoundly demoralizing about that knowledge. The exact extent of a demon prince's powers depends on many factors. Their location matters tremendously. Within the Eye of Terror, within the Great Rift, or in other places where the warp bleeds into reality, demon princes grow vastly more powerful. The barriers between dimensions grow thin in these places, allowing them to draw upon greater reserves of demonic energy, to manifest more of their true power without the constraints that normally limit them in the material universe. A demon prince fighting in such a location might be 2 or 3 times as dangerous as they would be on a normal imperial world, their powers enhanced to truly godlike levels. The strength of their patron god's influence also matters. When the followers of a particular chaos god are ascendant, when great sacrifices have been made in that god's name, or when the great game swings in that god's favor, their demon princes grow stronger accordingly. The chaos gods are fickle, and their favor waxes and wanes, but a demon prince who has pleased their patron recently might find themselves granted additional power, temporary blessings that make them even more formidable than usual. Time of day, phase of local moons, the positions of planets in their orbits, all of these factors, and countless others, can influence the strength of a demon prince's powers. The warp does not follow the orderly laws that govern the material universe. It is chaotic, unpredictable, influenced by emotion and belief, and strange resonances that mortal science cannot measure or predict. A demon prince might find their powers fluctuating wildly from one engagement to the next, weak and struggling one day, as unstoppable the next, for reasons that remain mysterious even to themselves. Yet for all this discussion of their supernatural abilities, we have only been speaking in abstractions and generalities. To truly understand how strong demon princes are, we must examine specific examples, look at the achievements and capabilities of individual demon princes who have shaped the history of the galaxy through their actions. We must turn our attention to the notable figures who have ascended to demonhood, beginning with the very first and most infamous of their kind. Notable demon princes across the ages. The history of the galaxy is written in blood and fire, and among those who have spilled the most blood and kindled the greatest fires are the demon princes who have risen to prominence over the millennia. These are not faceless entities, but individuals with their own personalities, their own accomplishments, their own terrible legacies. To examine them is to understand the full scope of what a demon prince can become, the heights of power they can achieve, and the influence they can wield over the course of galactic history. We begin with Be'lakor, the Dark Master, the first prince, the being who achieved what no one before or since has managed to replicate. Be'lakor has the distinction of being the very first mortal to be elevated to demon princedom, and according to some accounts, he is the only being to have ever been elevated through the combined will of all 4 chaos gods acting in concert. His power is legendary, his cunning beyond measure, and his influence on galactic events stretches back to the very dawn of humanity's existence. In ancient times, before mankind had even left Terra, Be'lakor led the hordes of chaos at the dawn of time itself, wielding power that made him nearly unstoppable. But his pride and arrogance eventually brought him into conflict with the very gods who had elevated him. Tzeentch, the architect of fate, placed a curse upon him, binding him with the role of kingmaker. Be'lakor became the one who would crown the ever-chosen of chaos, forced to elevate others to positions of power and glory while never being able to claim such honors for himself. This curse has driven him to undermine countless champions of chaos over the millennia, sabotaging their plans and turning their ambitions to dust, all while serving the will of chaos in ways that even he might not fully understand. Be'lakor's strength is difficult to quantify because so much of what he does operates in shadows and through manipulation. But when he chooses to fight directly, when circumstances force him to take to the battlefield in person, his power is undeniable. He has fought against primarchs and survived. He has outmaneuvered champions who thought themselves cleverer than any demon. He exists as living proof that the first is not always the least, that age and experience can grant a demon prince powers that rival or exceed even those who came after. But Be'lakor, for all his ancient power and terrible cunning, is not the most famous of the demon princes. That dubious honor belongs to a different category of ascended beings entirely, the demon primarchs, near those legendary figures who were once the gene sons of the emperor himself, commanders of entire space marine legions, beings who were already demigods before chaos elevated them to something even greater. Angron, Primarch of the World Eaters Legion, stands as perhaps the most straightforward example of a demon prince's combat power. Before his ascension, Angron was already considered one of the three most physically powerful Primarchs, renowned for his savage fighting style and unmatched ferocity in close combat. The butcher's nails, implanted in his brain, drove him to constant rage and aggression, making him a berserker of legendary capability. When Khorne elevated him to demonhood during the Horus Heresy, Angron became something truly terrifying. As a demon prince of the blood god, Angron embodies violence in its purest form. As he is massive, even compared to other Daemon princes, towering over everything around him, his body covered in brass armor and wreathed in flames of blood and wrath. He wields enormous axes that can cleave through nearly anything, and his strength is such that he can tear apart armored vehicles with his bare hands. His mere presence on a battlefield can turn the tide of entire wars, his followers driven to heights of berserker fury by his proximity, while his enemies feel their courage failing in the face of such primal, unstoppable rage. Angron's achievements since his ascension are staggering. During the First War for Armageddon, he led an invasion force that nearly conquered one of the Imperium's most important hive worlds, slaughtering billions and leaving scars that remain visible even 10,000 years later. But only the arrival of the Grey Knights, the Imperium's most elite demon hunters, was able to banish him, and even then it required tremendous sacrifice. More recently, Angron returned to the material universe aboard the Conqueror, his old flagship, and personally led the assault on the world of Kalkin's Tribune, annihilating a garrison of billions and a fleet of over 2,000 warships in a matter of weeks. The Demon Primarch fights with a fury that seems literally unending. He is described as being accompanied by 8 bloodthirsters, greater demons of Khorne, who serve as his honor guard, a testament to his status and power. When the forces of chaos want something destroyed utterly and completely, when they need a target obliterated with no subtlety or strategy, just raw, overwhelming violence, they turn to Angron. He is the answer to the question of how much destruction a single being can cause when they possess infinite rage and God-given power to express it. Yet for all of Angron's terrifying physical might, he is not the most powerful of the Daemon Primarchs. That distinction likely belongs to Magnus the Red, Primarch of the Thousand Suns, and perhaps the most powerful Psyker to ever live, save for the Emperor himself. Before his ascension, Magnus was already a sorcerer of unparalleled ability, able to manipulate the warp with precision and power that made him the master of his legion, despite their own considerable psychic gifts. When Sench claimed him as a demon prince, Magnus became something that transcends normal understanding of what a Psyker can accomplish. Magnus the Red now exists as much as a warp entity as a physical being. He can change his size at will, appearing as a normal human or swelling to the stature of a titan as circumstances demand. His psychic powers allow him to perform feats that seem like miracles or curses, depending on one's perspective. He can level entire cities with a gesture, summon armies of demons with a word, peer into the future with clarity that makes planning against him nearly impossible. His very presence warps reality, and those who face him must contend not just with his physical power, which is considerable, but with sorcery so advanced that it might as well be divine intervention. The recent history of the 41st Millennium has seen Magnus active once more, leading his 1,000 sons in campaigns throughout the Imperium. He has shattered worlds, corrupted entire sectors, and proven repeatedly that his power has only grown in the 10 millennia since the Horus Heresy. His psychic might makes him one of the few beings in the galaxy who could potentially face the Emperor's Primarch sons in single combat and have a realistic chance of victory, a testament to just how dangerous sentient demon princes can become. Mortarion, Primarch of the Death Guard, represents the resilient horror of Nurgle made manifest. His transformation into a demon prince came reluctantly when he bargained his soul and the souls of his entire legion to save them from certain destruction while trapped in the warp. Nurgle's embrace transformed them all, but Mortarion most of all, making him a towering figure of decay and pestilence. He now stands even taller than he did as a mortal Primarch, his body emaciated yet incredibly tough, all wrapped in corrupted power armor and wielding the massive scythe known as Silence. As a demon prince of Nurgle, Mortarion brings death not through violence, but through corruption and disease. His presence spreads plague wherever he goes, entire populations succumbing to afflictions that have no cure, soldiers falling ill mid-battle as his miasma overwhelms even sealed armor. He is incredibly difficult to harm, his body saturated with Nurgle's blessings to the point where wounds that would kill other beings barely slow him down. When he led the invasion during the Plague Wars, attacking the realm of Ultramar itself, it took the intervention of the returned Primarch Reboot Guilliman to finally drive him back, and even then it was a near thing. Mortarion's strength lies not just in his personal power, but in his command of the Death Guard Legion and the demonic forces of Nurgle. He is a strategic genius, patient and methodical, capable of planning campaigns that span decades or centuries. His forces advance like a slow but unstoppable tide, corrupting and claiming territory in ways that make reconquest nearly impossible. A world touched by Mortarion's influence might remain tainted for thousands of years, the spiritual and physical scars of his passage never fully healing. Fulgrim, Primarch of the Emperor's Children, exemplifies the beautiful horror of Slaanesh. His ascension came after a complex series of events involving possession by a demon and the eventual merging of his mortal and demonic essences into something that transcended both. As a demon prince, Fulgrim is described as both impossibly beautiful and profoundly wrong, his form having taken on serpentine characteristics, his lower body now that of a massive snake, while his upper body retains humanoid features of terrible perfection. The demon Primarch of Slaanesh moves with speed that makes him difficult to track, striking multiple times before opponents can react. His weapons, including the infamous Blade of Leia, can kill with almost surgical precision, finding weak points in enemy defenses and exploiting them ruthlessly. But beyond his physical capabilities, Fulgrim commands powers of seduction and manipulation that can corrupt entire worlds. His legion, the Emperor's Children, excel at spreading decadence and excess, undermining imperial societies from within, before launching attacks that are as much about inflicting unique suffering as achieving tactical objectives. Fulgrim's most infamous achievement was his duel with Reboot Guilliman, a confrontation where Fulgrim's blade struck Guilliman down, leaving him mortally wounded and forcing the Ultramarines to place their Primarch in stasis for 10,000 years. Though Guilliman has since returned and survived his wounds, the fact that Fulgrim was able to defeat one of the Imperium's greatest warriors in single combat speaks volumes about the power of a Slaaneshi demon prince at the height of their abilities. Lorgar and Perturabo, Daemon princes of Chaos Undivided, represent a different path to power. These Primarchs did not pledge themselves to a single god, but instead gained the favor of all four ruinous powers, a feat that is incredibly rare and difficult. Lorgar, Primarch of the Wordbearers, was instrumental in the fall of Horus and the corruption of multiple legions. His transformation into a demon prince came after millennia of devoted service. His mastery of dark sorcery and his understanding of chaos theology, making him one of the most dangerous spiritual threats in the galaxy. Lorgar's power lies in his words as much as his physical might. He is said to be a master of enuncia, the language of creation itself, able to reshape reality through properly spoken words. While he may not match Magnus in raw psychic power or Angron in pure combat ferocity, Lorgar's combination of abilities makes him exceptionally dangerous. He can inspire corrupted followers to heights of fanatical zeal. He can perform rituals of immense power, and when forced to fight directly, he proves himself more than capable of holding his own against legendary opponents. Perturabo, Primarch of the Iron Warriors, brings cold calculation and mechanical precision to his role as a demon prince. His ascension came after the Iron Cage incident, a brutal campaign against the Imperial Fists where his tactical brilliance and ruthless efficiency caught the attention of all four Chaos gods. As a demon prince of Chaos undivided, Perturabo represents the marriage of demon and machine, his body reportedly incorporating elements of both flesh and metal, becoming something that is part demon, part living weapon system. Little is known about Perturabo's current activities, as he spends much of his time within the Eye of Terror, but accounts suggest that he has fought against Mortarion and held his own, a testament to his power. His tactical acumen remains legendary, and his forces, the Iron Warriors, continue to be among the most effective siege warfare specialists in the galaxy. Their success a reflection of the genius that leads them, even if that leadership is often from a distance. But the demon primarchs, mighty as they are, do not represent the full scope of demon prince achievements throughout history. There are other demon princes whose deeds have shaped the galaxy in significant ways, beings who may not have been primarchs, but whose power and influence rival or exceed many who were born as such. Doombreed, one of Khorne's greatest demon princes, that is said to be older and more powerful than some of the demon primarchs themselves. He ascended from ancient terror, a warlord from humanity's distant past, whose atrocities were so terrible that Khorne granted him demonhood when the blood god first gained awareness of humanity. His true name has been lost to time, making him nearly impossible to banish through the conventional means of speaking a demon's true name. When Doombreed takes to the battlefield, he brings with him the accumulated fury of countless millennia of service to the blood god, and his power is such that even the demon primarchs respect and perhaps fear him. Makar, the Reborn, a demon prince of chaos undivided, has plagued the Ultramarines and their successor chapters for millennia. Originally a dark apostle of the Word-bearers named Malok Cartho, at his transformation into Makar brought with it tremendous power and a particular hatred for the sons of Guilliman. He has led invasions of Ultramar, corrupted entire chapters of Space Marines, and proven himself capable of standing against some of the Imperium's greatest heroes. Only through the knowledge of his true name, discovered by Uriel Ventris, have Imperial forces been able to weaken and banish him, and even then his defeats are temporary setbacks rather than true endings. These examples, these specific individuals who have risen to prominence as demon princes, demonstrate the incredible range of power and capability that demonhood can grant. But understanding their individual achievements is only part of comprehending their strength. To fully grasp how powerful demon princes are, we must compare them directly to the other forces they face on the battlefields of the 41st millennium, measure their capabilities against the armies and champions who stand against them. Demon princes versus other factions and powers. The true measure of a warrior's strength is not found in abstract discussion, but in combat, in the crucible of battle, where theory gives way to bloody reality. Demon princes have faced nearly every major military force in the galaxy, and their performance in these confrontations reveals both the extent and the limitations of their power. They are formidable beyond question, but they are not invincible, not unbeatable. Understanding who they can defeat and who presents genuine threats to them provides crucial context for assessing their overall strength. Against ordinary humans, against the Imperial Guard and other baseline mortal forces, A demon prince is essentially unstoppable. These encounters are less battles than they are massacres. A single demon prince can carve through entire regiments of guardsmen, their weapons barely scratching the demon prince's hide, while each swing of the demon's weapons claims dozens of lives. The psychological impact alone is often enough to break mortal forces. When soldiers see a demon prince, a being that towers over them like a walking nightmare, their training often fails them. They flee, they freeze, they sometimes go mad, and those who manage to maintain composure and fight discover that their courage makes little difference against an enemy who shrugs off laser fire like rain. The story changes when Daemon princes face the Adeptus Astartes, the Space Marines. These transhuman warriors possess the training, equipment, and psychological conditioning to face demonic threats without breaking. A squad of Space Marines can hurt a demon prince. Their bolters and specialized weapons capable of inflicting real damage. In such engagements, the demon prince remains the superior combatant, but the margin narrows significantly. A demon prince facing a full company of Space Marines, particularly if that company includes veteran sergeants, librarians, and other specialists, cannot simply wade through them unopposed. They must fight tactically, choose their targets wisely, and even then they risk being overwhelmed through sheer weight of fire and coordinated assault. The Grey Knights, the Imperium's specialized demon hunters, present an even greater threat. These psychically active Space Marines are trained and equipped specifically to combat demonic entities. Their force weapons can permanently harm demons in ways that normal weapons cannot. Their psychic powers can banish demon princes back to the warp. Their faith and purity provide protection against the corrupting influence that makes other forces vulnerable. When a demon prince faces Grey Knights, they face opponents who understand their nature, who know their weaknesses, and who possess the tools necessary to exploit those weaknesses. Many demon princes have been banished by Grey Knight strike forces, though typically at tremendous cost to the knights themselves. The question of how demon princes compare to greater demons is complex and has been debated extensively among both imperial scholars and chaos worshippers themselves. In the hierarchy of chaos, greater demons technically outrank demon princes. They are purer expressions of their god's will, born from the warp itself rather than ascending from mortal origins. Greater demons, like bloodthirsters, lords of change, great unclean ones, and keepers of secrets, possess tremendous power, and they often view demon princes with a mixture of contempt and resentment, seeing them as tainted by their mortal origins, forever marked by the fact that they once existed as beings of flesh rather than pure warp energy. But hierarchy does not always equate to combat effectiveness. While greater demons are indeed powerful, demon princes possess certain advantages that can make them more dangerous in specific situations, while demon princes retain the tactical acumen and strategic thinking that came from their mortal existence. Many of them were Space Marines or other warriors who spent centuries honing their skills. This experience, combined with demonic power, creates a synthesis that greater demons, for all their raw strength, sometimes cannot match. A demon prince might lack the pure destructive potential of a bloodthirster, but they might possess superior tactical awareness that allows them to position themselves more effectively, to choose better targets, to coordinate with mortal forces in ways that greater demons struggle to replicate. The demon primarchs complicate this comparison further. Most sources agree that the demon primarchs exceed typical demon princes in power, and many suggest that they rival or even surpass greater demons in terms of raw capability. Angron, for example, is accompanied by bloodthirsters, suggesting that he is at minimum their peer, and quite possibly their superior. Magnus, the Red Psychic, might likely exceeds that of all but the most powerful Lords of Change. The demon primarchs were already demigods before their ascension, and their transformation elevated them to heights that ordinary demon princes cannot reach. Against other Xenos threats, demon princes' effectiveness varies. Orc forces, with their natural resistance to fear, and their tendency to find combat enjoyable regardless of the odds, can prove surprisingly resilient against demon princes. While the demon prince will inevitably prove superior in direct combat, orcs will keep fighting with enthusiasm that never wavers, and their sheer numbers can overwhelm even demonic resilience through pure attrition. The greenskin's psychic gestalt also provides some measure of protection against the worst of Chaos's reality-warping abilities. The Aeldari, both the craft world variety and their dark kin in Komorrah, possess weapons and capabilities specifically designed to harm demons. Soul Edge weapons can bypass physical defenses and strike directly at a demon prince's essence. Powerful psychers among the Aeldari can perform banishments with precision that matches or exceeds even the Grey Knights. Demon princes who face Aeldari forces must contend with enemies who combine technological sophistication, psychic prowess, and millennia of experience fighting chaos. The ancient rivalry between the Aeldari gods and the Chaos gods means that war gear blessed by the Aeldari pantheon carries special potency against demonic entities. The Tyrannid hive fleets present a unique threat to demon princes because they represent life that is completely antithetical to chaos. The Tyrannids have no souls in the conventional sense, no consciousness that can be corrupted or turned. They cannot feel fear, cannot be seduced, cannot be manipulated through any of the psychological weapons that demon princes normally wield with such effectiveness. Against Tyrannids, a demon prince is reduced to purely physical combat, and while they remain formidable, they lose many of the advantages that make them so dangerous against conventional foes. The shadow in the warp that Tyrannid fleets generate also actively suppresses psychic powers, weakening the supernatural abilities that demon princes rely upon. The Necrons, ancient machines awakening from their tomb worlds, present perhaps the most troubling opposition for demon princes. Necron technology operates on principles that predate the Chaos gods themselves, developed by a civilization that mastered science to a degree that makes it indistinguishable from magic. Their weapons can permanently destroy demon essence in ways that prevent reformation. Their technology can seal off areas from warp influence entirely, and their own immunity to corruption means that demon princes cannot subvert them. Fortunately for Chaos, as the Necrons remain largely concerned with their own agendas and only rarely engage with Chaos forces, except when their tomb worlds are directly threatened. When demon princes face off against Imperial heroes and legendary champions, the results vary dramatically based on the specific individuals involved. Chapter Masters, Inquisitors, Imperial Saints, and other exceptional individuals possess both the skills and often the blessed equipment necessary to threaten even a demon prince. These duels can go either way, the outcome often depending on circumstances, preparation, and luck as much as raw power. A demon prince is generally superior to any single opponent, but if that opponent is armed with a power weapon blessed by the Emperor, backed by faith that manifests as literal divine protection, and fighting on ground that has been consecrated against chaos, the balance can shift dramatically. The return of the Primarch Roboute Guilliman to the Imperium has provided new data points for assessing Daemon Prince strength. Guilliman has fought against both Mortarion and Magnus since his resurrection, and while he has survived these encounters, they were not easy victories. Against Mortarion during the Plague Wars, Guilliman prevailed, but only with the help of Aeldari intervention and the divine power channeled through the Emperor's sword. The fact that these battles were even remotely competitive speaks to the tremendous power that demon primarchs possess, as Guilliman himself is one of the Imperium's mightiest warriors. In summary, demon princes are among the most powerful individual combatants in the galaxy. They can single-handedly turn the tide of battles, can defeat all but the most elite opponents in single combat, and possess capabilities that allow them to threaten entire armies. But they are not invincible. They can be overwhelmed, they can be outmaneuvered, and they can be defeated by opponents who understand their nature and possess the tools to exploit their weaknesses. They are apex predators in a galaxy full of dangerous creatures, formidable but not unchallengeable, powerful but not omnipotent. And it is in understanding those weaknesses, those vulnerabilities, that allow mortal forces to have any hope of standing against them, that we begin to see the full picture of what a demon prince truly is. Weaknesses and vulnerabilities. For all their terrible power, for all their supernatural abilities and physical might, the demon princes are not without weaknesses. Indeed, the very nature of their existence carries with it vulnerabilities that clever opponents can exploit. Understanding these weaknesses is crucial not just for those who would oppose them, but for truly comprehending what it means to be a demon prince, the price paid for power, and the chains that bind even these seemingly unchained entities. The most famous and potentially most exploitable weakness of any demon is their true name. Every daemon, demon prince included, possesses a true name that represents their essence in ways that mortal names do not. This true name is more than just an identifier. It is a fundamental part of what they are, a key that can be used to bind, control, or banish them. For demon princes who were once mortal, their true name is often their original mortal name, the identity they possessed before their transformation. Speaking this name, particularly in the right context with the right rituals, can weaken a demon prince tremendously, binding them to the speaker's will or making them vulnerable to banishment in ways they normally would not be. The case of Makar the Reborn demonstrates this vulnerability clearly. When Uriel Ventris discovered that Makar's true name was Malok Cartho, his original identity as a dark apostle of the Word-bearers, he was able to weaken the demon prince significantly by speaking that name aloud during battle. The confusion of being addressed by his mortal identity, the binding that occurs when a demon's true name is invoked, created an opening that allowed Imperial forces to drive him back and eventually banish him. As other demon princes have suffered similar fates when their true names were discovered and used against them. This vulnerability creates an interesting tactical consideration. Many daemon princes go to great lengths to ensure their true names remain secret. They may adopt new identities, use titles rather than names, or actively hunt down anyone who might know what they were called in mortal life. Ancient demon princes like Doombreed have an advantage here because their mortal names have been lost to history, buried under millennia of time until no record remains of what they were once called. Without knowledge of the true name, this particular weakness becomes irrelevant, but the effort required to protect that secret reveals how significant a vulnerability it truly is. The dependence on the warp represents another fundamental weakness. As demon princes exist simultaneously in both the material universe and the immaterium. This connection to the warp is the source of their power, but it is also a limitation. In areas where the warp is thin or suppressed, where barriers between dimensions remain strong, demon princes find their powers significantly weakened. They cannot draw upon the full extent of their abilities, their physical forms become less stable, and they are more vulnerable to conventional weapons and attacks. This is why demon princes are so much more dangerous within the Eye of Terror, within the Great Rift, or in other locations where reality is thin and the warp bleeds through into the material universe. In these places, they can access more of their power, can maintain their physical forms more easily, and are at their most dangerous. Conversely, when fighting on worlds with strong warp barriers, on battlefields that have been consecrated by imperial ecclesiarchy, or in the presence of powerful psychic nulls, demon princes find themselves significantly weakened. The Necron pylons, ancient technology that actively suppresses warp activity, represent one of the most effective counters to demon prince power that exists in the galaxy. In areas protected by these pylons, demon princes cannot fully manifest. Their powers are drastically reduced, and they become vulnerable in ways that would be unthinkable under normal circumstances. The Silent King's understanding of this technology and his deployment of it represents one of the few systematic approaches to countering chaos that has proven consistently effective. The nature of demonic existence creates another vulnerability in the form of banishment. While demon princes cannot be permanently killed through conventional means, they can be banished back to the warp, forced to spend centuries or millennia reforming before they can return to the material universe. This banishment can be accomplished through various means: overwhelming physical damage that destroys their material form, psychic attacks that sever their connection to reality, or rituals specifically designed to cast demons back into the Imperium. The process of reforming after banishment is not pleasant by all accounts. The Demon Prince's essence must slowly coalesce in the warp, gathering enough strength and cohesion to manifest once more. During this time, they are vulnerable to their fellow demons, who might see an opportunity to consume weakened rivals. They must also endure the mockery of their peers, as banishment is seen as failure, evidence of weakness. The shame and indignity of defeat, for beings whose pride is often as vast as their power, can be as painful as the physical process of reformation. Faith represents a weapon that can harm demon princes in ways that purely physical attacks cannot. The Emperor's psychic might, channeled through the faith of his most devoted servants, can manifest as literal protection and offensive power. Imperial saints, blessed by the Emperor's grace, can fight demon princes on something approaching equal terms, their faith making them resistant to corruption and their weapons carrying power that transcends their physical form. Living saints like Celestine have engaged demon princes in combat and emerged victorious, their unwavering faith providing both defense and offense against demonic power. The Adepta Sororitas, the Sisters of Battle, wield faith as their primary weapon against chaos. Their acts of faith can banish demons, protect against corruption, and strike with holy fire that burns demon essence in ways that conventional weapons cannot match. A demon prince facing a large force of Sisters of Battle, particularly if those sisters are supported by saint characters or ecclesiarchy priests capable of channeling the Emperor's power, faces a genuinely dangerous situation where their normal advantages may be significantly reduced. Specialized weapons and equipment represent another means of threatening demon princes. Force weapons are used by librarians and other psychically active warriors, can strike directly at a demon's essence rather than merely their physical form. Blessed weapons, consecrated through prayer and ritual, carry power that burns demon flesh in ways that mundane weapons do not. Ancient relics, particularly those connected to the Emperor or his primarchs, can provide protection against demonic powers or inflict harm that transcends simple physical damage. The Grey Knights, as mentioned earlier, are equipped and trained specifically to exploit these vulnerabilities. Their Aegis armor provides protection against psychic attacks and corruption. Their weapons are all force weapons, capable of permanently harming demons. Their rituals and prayers can weaken demons or strengthen themselves. Their entire tactical doctrine is built around identifying and exploiting weaknesses in demonic foes. When a demon prince faces Grey Knights, they face opponents who know exactly how to hurt them and have the tools to do so. Another vulnerability lies in the demon prince's changed nature and perspective. The transformation into demonhood alters not just the body, but the mind and priorities. Many demon princes find that their mortal concerns and goals, the things that drove them to seek power in the first place, no longer seem important. The long war against the Imperium, the achievement of specific tactical or strategic objectives, even the survival of their followers can become secondary to the pursuit of pleasures or goals that only make sense to a demonic mind. This shift in perspective is why Abaddon the Despoiler has repeatedly refused offers of demonhood, understanding that accepting such power would alter his priorities in ways that might make him abandon his long-term plans. It is why many demon princes, after ascending, seem to lose interest in the material universe, spending centuries or millennia within the warp, rather than actively pursuing the goals they once considered paramount. They become tools of their gods rather than independent agents, their free will constrained by their nature as demons, their actions guided by divine will rather than personal ambition. The contempt that pure demons feel for demon princes while not exactly a weakness in combat terms, does create political and social vulnerabilities. Demon princes often find themselves looked down upon by greater demons and other entities born of the warp, seen as tainted by their mortal origins, forever marked as lesser beings who had to be elevated rather than being created already perfect. This contempt can manifest as refusal to follow orders, as backstabbing and betrayal, or simply as a lack of support at crucial moments. A demon prince commanding demonic legions might find their troops less than enthusiastic about following orders from someone they consider inferior. Finally, there is the fundamental vulnerability that comes from being eternally bound to a capricious god. The Chaos Gods are fickle entities who can withdraw their favor as easily as they grant it. A demon prince who displeases their patron might find their powers suddenly reduced, their connection to the warp weakened, or worse. The gods have been known to punish failure by transforming even their demon princes into chaos spawn, reducing beings of tremendous power and intelligence to mindless monsters, as a warning to others about the price of disappointing a god. These weaknesses, taken together, provide the Imperium and other forces with the tools they need to have at least some hope of victory against demon princes. They are formidable enemies, yes, but not unkillable, not unstoppable. They can be defeated, banished, or avoided through careful strategy and the right tools. But understanding these weaknesses only makes their achievements more impressive, because despite these vulnerabilities, demon princes remain among the most dangerous entities in the galaxy. Beings whose power shapes the course of wars, and whose actions echo through centuries. Yet perhaps the most profound truth about demon princes is not found in their strengths or their weaknesses, but in understanding what they have given up to achieve their power, the terrible price they paid for immortality and might beyond mortal comprehension. The price of immortality. Psychological and spiritual impact. To become a demon prince is to surrender everything that makes one mortal. It is not simply a matter of gaining power or extending one's lifespan. It is a fundamental transformation that reaches into the very core of what a being is, changing them in ways that can never be undone, that alter their perception of reality and their relationship to existence itself. The price paid for demonhood goes far beyond the terrible deeds required to attract a god's attention. The true cost is measured in the loss of humanity, the sacrifice of free will, and the eternal servitude to powers that care nothing for the individual save as a tool to be used. When a mortal becomes a demon prince, they do not simply gain a more powerful body. Their consciousness itself is altered, expanded in some ways, and constrained in others. They can perceive dimensions that were previously invisible, see the warp's currents and eddies, understand the flow of psychic energy in ways that no mortal psyker can match. But this expanded perception comes with a price. The material universe, the world of flesh and matter and linear time, begins to seem less real, less important. The concerns that once drove them, the goals and ambitions that shaped their mortal existence, start to fade, replaced by new priorities that reflect their demonic nature. This shift in perspective explains why so many demon princes, after their ascension, seem to lose interest in the material universe. They spend centuries or millennia within the warp, pursuing goals and pleasures that make no sense to mortal minds, apparently forgetting about the campaigns they once led and the objectives they once considered vital. It is not that they have grown lazy or indifferent. Rather, their frame of reference has changed so dramatically that what once seemed crucial now appears trivial, while pursuits that would seem pointless to mortals become all-consuming obsessions. Consider Fulgrim, who in mortal life was obsessed with perfection, with aesthetics, all with the creation of works of art and the pursuit of excellence in all things. After his ascension to daemonhood in service to Slaanesh, these interests did not disappear but warped into something altogether different. He became consumed with experiencing and creating sensation for its own sake, pursuing excess in all forms. his original drive for perfection twisted into an unending quest for novel experiences, regardless of their moral implications. The Fulgrim, who once wept over a single flaw in his legion's formations, became something that could orchestrate acts of depravity simply to see what new sensations they might produce. The loss of free will is perhaps the most insidious price of ascension. Demon princes believe themselves to be powerful and independent, masters of their own destiny, but they are demons. And demons are by their very nature extensions of the chaos gods who created or elevated them. Their thoughts are not entirely their own. Their desires align with those of their patron, not through conscious choice, but through the fundamental nature of their being. When a demon prince serves their god's will, they do so not because they have decided it is the right course of action, but because their demonic nature makes serving that will feel natural and right. This is why Abaddon has refused daemonhood despite multiple offers. He understands, perhaps better than any other champion of chaos, that accepting such power would fundamentally alter his goals and priorities. He might gain tremendous personal power, but he would lose the focused determination that drives his pursuit of the Long War. His plans to destroy the Imperium, as carefully crafted over 10 millennia, might suddenly seem less important than pursing whatever whims his demonic nature imposed upon him. Better, he reasons, to remain mortal and free, even if that means remaining weaker, than to gain power at the cost of the freedom to use it as he chooses. The relationship between demon princes and the mortal followers they once led becomes strained and complicated. Space Marines, who served under a leader before that leader's ascension, often find themselves disturbed by what their commander has become. The person they followed, whose tactical genius and charisma inspired them, is gone, replaced by something that wears a familiar shape but whose mind operates according to alien logic. Some followers embrace this change, seeing it as the ultimate proof of their leader's worth. Others, like the Night Lords in various accounts, view it as a betrayal of what their legion stood for, a descent into the very kind of corruption they once fought to resist. The eternal nature of demonic existence brings its own psychological burden. Demon princes will exist as long as chaos itself endures, which is to say, effectively forever. They cannot die, cannot find peace, cannot escape the cycle of manifestation and banishment and reformation that defines their existence. For beings who retain some memory of their mortal life, who can still recall what it felt like to be human, this eternal existence can become a torment. They are trapped in a state of being that can never end, serving gods whose whims they cannot deny, pursuing goals that shift and change with the tides of the warp. The contempt they face from pure demons, from greater demons and other entities born of the warp rather than elevated from mortality, adds an additional layer of misery. No matter how powerful they become, no matter what accomplishments they achieve, demon princes are forever marked by their origin. The other demons see them as tainted, impure, lesser beings who had to be raised up rather than being born already perfect. This contempt is rarely openly expressed. The hierarchy of chaos demands a certain level of respect based on power, but it manifests in subtle ways. Orders are followed with less enthusiasm. Support arrives just a bit too late to be maximally effective. Other demons take pleasure in seeing demon princes struggle or fail. There is also the loss of simple pleasures and experiences that defined mortal existence. A demon prince no longer needs to eat, sleep, or rest. They do not feel fatigue in any meaningful sense. Physical pain registers but does not affect them the same way it does mortals. The simple joys of mortal life, a good meal, the warmth of the sun, the company of friends, all of these become memories of experiences they can no longer truly have. What they gain in power, they lose in the ability to experience life in ways that gave that life meaning. The relationship with one's chosen god is not one of equals, despite what some demon princes might believe. The chaos gods are vast, incomprehensible entities whose power dwarfs even the mightiest demon prince. They are masters, and demon princes are servants, tools to be used and discarded as the gods see fit. When a god is pleased, they might grant additional blessings, temporary increases in power, or other rewards. But when a god is displeased, the consequences can be terrible. Even demon princes can be transformed into chaos spawn as punishment for failure, their consciousness trapped in a mass of uncontrolled mutation, their identity dissolved into mindless hunger and rage. The corruption that comes with demonhood extends beyond the physical and into the spiritual. Demon princes exist as beings of chaos, their very essence opposed to order, reason, and the natural laws that govern reality. They are corrupters by nature, their presence tainting everything around them, spreading the influence of chaos simply by existing. For those who retain some memory of what they once valued, who recall when they believed in honor or duty or protection of the innocent, this fundamental corruption can be a source of anguish. They have become the very thing they might have once fought against, embodiments of the forces that seek to tear down civilization and plunge the galaxy into eternal madness. Yet despite all of this, despite the terrible price paid and the chains that bind them, most demon princes do not express regret. Whether this is because the transformation has altered their consciousness to the point where they cannot properly assess what they have lost, or because the power they have gained truly is worth the price, or simply because regret is a mortal emotion that their demonic nature no longer accommodates, remains unclear. What is clear is that the path to demonhood, once started, leads to a destination from which there is no return. A transformation so complete that the being who emerges at the end has only a distant resemblance to the mortal who began the journey. The memories of their mortal existence become strange and distant, like dreams half remembered upon waking. A demon prince might recall major events, significant battles, the faces of those who were once important to them, but the emotional context fades. They remember loving or hating, but they can no longer quite access those feelings in the way they once did. It becomes history rather than lived experience, information stored in their consciousness, but no longer part of who they fundamentally are. This gradual erosion of identity represents perhaps the most insidious aspect of the transformation, because it happens so slowly that the demon prince might not even notice until one day they realize they can no longer remember what it felt like to be human. Some demon princes attempt to hold on to their mortal identity, to preserve some core of who they were before ascension. They might continue using their mortal name, might maintain relationships with followers who knew them before their transformation, might pursue goals that originated in their mortal life. But these attempts inevitably fail. The demonic nature is too strong, too fundamentally different from mortal consciousness. Like trying to hold water in cupped hands, the mortal self slips away, bit by bit, until nothing remains but the daemon, wearing memories of mortality, like a coat that no longer quite fits. The isolation that comes with this transformation should not be underestimated. A demon prince cannot truly relate to mortals anymore, cannot share in their experiences or understand their concerns from anything but an external, analytical perspective. But neither can they fully belong among the demons, who will always see them as outsiders, as beings tainted by their origin in flesh, rather than born pure from the warp. They exist between worlds, belonging fully to neither, powerful but fundamentally alone in ways that mortal loneliness cannot approach. This eternal servitude, this loss of self in exchange for power, is perhaps the ultimate irony of chaos. Those who seek power through the ruinous powers, who believe that ascension will grant them freedom and strength to shape reality according to their will, they discover too late that they have simply exchanged one form of servitude for another. They are no longer bound by mortal limitations, true, but they are absolutely bound to their gods, their eternal existence dedicated not to their own goals, but to the goals of entities that care nothing for their individual well-being or desires. The tragedy of the Demon Prince is not that they are monsters, though they certainly are that. The tragedy is that they were once something else, something that possessed the capacity for choice, for growth, for change in ways that were meaningful and self-directed. They gave up that capacity in pursuit of power, and in doing so, they became less than they were, even as they became physically more. They are proof that strength alone does not equal freedom, whilst that power without autonomy is just another form of slavery, and that the greatest victories of chaos are not the worlds it conquers, but the souls it corrupts into willingly accepting damnation. And it is this reality, this truth about what Daemon Princes truly are, that shapes their behavior and their role in the eternal conflict that consumes the galaxy. The great game and politics of chaos. The existence of a Demon Prince is not simply a matter of personal power and martial prowess. They exist within a complex political and spiritual hierarchy that shapes their actions, influences their choices, and determines their relationships with other entities of the warp. Understanding the great game, the eternal conflict between the chaos gods and among their servants, is essential to understanding how Demon Princes function and what drives their behavior beyond simple destruction and conquest. The great game refers to the endless struggle for supremacy among the four chaos gods. Horn, Nurgle, Tzeentch, and Slaanesh are not allies. They are rivals, each seeking to gain advantage over the others, to expand their influence at the expense of their brothers. This rivalry extends to their servants, including Daemon Princes. A Demon Prince of Khorne is not just fighting against the Imperium or other forces of order. They are also, whether consciously or not, working to advance Khorne's position in the great game, to bring glory to the Blood God in ways that diminish the standing of the other ruinous powers. This creates complex dynamics when Demon Princes of different gods must work together. While the forces of chaos sometimes unite against common enemies, there is always tension, always rivalry. A Khornate Demon Prince might view a Tzeentchian colleague with suspicion and contempt, seeing their sorcery as cowardly and their schemes as needlessly complex. The Tzeentchian in turn might see the Khornate as a blunt instrument, useful for crude tasks but lacking in sophistication. They cooperate when necessary, but neither truly trusts the other, and both are prepared to take advantage if opportunity presents itself. The position of Demon Princes in the hierarchy of chaos is complicated. They outrank ordinary demons, the lesser demons who make up the bulk of demonic armies. They command respect from mortal chaos worshippers, who see them as blessed champions, living proof of the rewards that await the faithful. But greater demons technically outrank them, and as discussed earlier, often view them with contempt despite this formal hierarchy. This creates a situation where Daemon Princes possess significant power, but must constantly navigate political waters to maintain their position and achieve their goals. Many Daemon Princes rule over Daemon worlds, planets that have been dragged into the warp, or exist in regions where reality is so thin that the warp and materium overlap. These worlds serve as their personal domains, shaped according to their will and reflecting their personality and the nature of their patron god. A Daemon Prince of Nurgle might rule over a plague world, where disease and decay have transformed the entire ecosystem into a garden of infection. A Tzeentchian might preside over a planet where reality shifts constantly, where the laws of physics are suggestions at best, where impossible architecture reaches towards skies that display colors that have no names. Ruling these demon worlds provides Demon Princes with resources and followers. Lesser demons spawn naturally in these places, and mortal chaos cultists flock to them, seeking proximity to their dark gods. The worlds serve as bases of operation for raids into the material universe, staging grounds for campaigns against Imperial space, and sanctuaries where Demon Princes can retreat when the material universe proves too hostile. The quality and size of a demon prince's domain reflects their standing among chaos forces, with more powerful princes commanding larger, more resource-rich territories. The relationship between demon princes and greater demons is worth examining in greater detail. While greater demons may view demon princes as inferior, many demon princes have proven themselves powerful enough to command even these mighty entities. The demon primarchs in particular often have greater demons in their retinues, serving as bodyguards, advisors, or lieutenants. Angron's 8 Bloodthirster Honor Guard exemplifies this, showing that a sufficiently powerful demon prince can demand and receive service from entities that might otherwise consider themselves superior. This relationship is never entirely comfortable. Greater demons serve demon princes because they must, because the hierarchy demands it, or because the demon prince has proven themselves worthy through victory, but the undercurrent of resentment never fully disappears. A wise demon prince understands this and takes steps to maintain their authority, or whether through demonstrations of power, through securing victories that please their shared patron god, or simply through careful management of relationships to prevent challenges to their authority from gaining momentum. The role of demon princes in leading mortal chaos forces presents another interesting dynamic. Space Marine warbands, chaos cultist armies, and other mortal followers of the ruinous powers need leaders, and demon princes often fill this role. Their power inspires awe and devotion. Their immortal nature means they can pursue long-term strategies across centuries or millennia, and their understanding of the material universe, retained from their mortal existence, allows them to lead mortal forces more effectively than pure demons often can. But this leadership comes with complications. Mortals, even corrupted ones, still think in mortal terms. They have goals and concerns that may not align perfectly with their demon prince commander's priorities. A warband might want to secure resources or territory, while their demon prince leader cares only about staging raids that will please their patron god, regardless of strategic value. The best demon prince commanders understand these tensions and work to align their followers' goals with their own, but not all possess this skill or inclination. The constant need to please their patron god shapes all of a demon prince's actions within the great game. A demon prince of Khorne must constantly seek out worthy opponents to slay, must generate bloodshed and violence on scales sufficient to maintain their god's favor. A demon prince of Tzeentch must engage in schemes and plots, while must change and adapt and manipulate, must demonstrate the cunning and creativity that their god values. Failure to do so risks losing favor, risks weakening their connection to the warp, risks ultimately being cast aside or transformed into something lesser. This creates a form of eternal servitude that would be intolerable to most mortal minds. Demon princes can never rest, never retire, never simply exist without constantly working to advance their god's agenda. They are tools, weapons in an eternal war, and tools that prove ineffective are discarded. The immortality they gained comes with the price of eternal service, an endless cycle of manifesting in the material universe, fighting battles, being banished, reforming, and manifesting again, over and over for as long as chaos endures. But the political relationships between different demon princes can be complex and multifaceted. Some maintain alliances that span millennia, particularly those who serve the same god and whose goals align. Others are bitter rivals, competing for their patron's favor, undermining each other's plans, sometimes even fighting directly when opportunity presents. Be'lakor's tendency to sabotage other champions of chaos represents an extreme example, but lesser versions of this behavior are common throughout chaos's hierarchy. Within the Eye of Terror and other regions where chaos holds sway, there exist courts and assemblies where daemon princes gather, where deals are made and broken, where alliances form and dissolve. These are not pleasant places. The politics of chaos are vicious, treacherous, and often literally deadly. A demon prince must constantly watch for threats not just from the Imperium or other external forces, but from their fellow servants of chaos, who might see opportunity in another's moment of weakness. Yet for all this political complexity, for all the scheming and backstabbing and rivalry, demon princes remain united in their opposition to order, to the Imperium, and to the other forces that would resist chaos's dominance. When the dark gods demand it, when opportunities present themselves, demon princes set aside their differences and work together to achieve objectives that serve chaos as a whole. The Black Crusades, led by Abaddon, have seen demon princes of all four gods fighting side by side, their rivalries temporarily suspended in pursuit of the greater goal of tearing down the Imperium. This is ultimately what makes chaos so dangerous. Despite all the internal division, despite the great game and the constant betrayals, and the fundamental opposition between the different gods, when chaos forces unite even temporarily, they become nearly unstoppable. And demon princes, as some of the most powerful individual servants of chaos, play crucial roles in these unified efforts, lending their strength, their experience, and their supernatural abilities to campaigns that threaten entire sectors of imperial space. The great game will continue as long as the chaos gods exist, and the demon princes will continue to play their parts in it. Pawns in a contest that transcends mortal understanding, tools in the hands of gods who care nothing for their individual existence. They are powerful, yes, terribly powerful. But that power comes with chains that bind them to purposes not their own, to an existence defined not by choice, but by servitude, to forces that regard them as disposable assets in an eternal struggle for supremacy. Conclusion. We have traced the path from mortal to monster, examined the transformation that tears apart everything a being was and remakes it into something alien and terrible. We have measured their strength against the mightiest warriors the galaxy can produce, assessed their supernatural powers, and explored the weaknesses that prevent them from being truly unstoppable. We have looked at specific examples, the legendary demon princes who have shaped galactic history through their actions, and we have examined the political and spiritual realities that define their existence. Now, as we draw this examination to a close, we must answer the question that began this journey. How strong are demon princes in Warhammer 40,000? The answer is complex, multifaceted, and depends heavily on context. In terms of raw physical might, demon princes are among the most powerful individual combatants in the galaxy. They can tear through Space Marine squads, destroy armored vehicles with their bare hands, and fight for hours without tiring. Their supernatural abilities grant them powers that transcend anything possible through purely physical means, allowing them to reshape reality, summon legions of demons, and wield sorcery that can level cities. Their immortal nature means they will return from defeat again and again, never truly dying as long as chaos itself endures. But their strength is not absolute. They can be defeated, banished, or avoided through careful strategy and the right tools. They possess vulnerabilities that skilled opponents can exploit, from their true names to their dependence on the warp. They face opposition from forces that match or exceed their own power, from Grey Knights, who specialize in demon hunting, to other demon princes, and greater demons who compete with them for supremacy in the hierarchy of chaos. Perhaps most importantly, their strength is ultimately not their own. They are tools of the chaos gods, extensions of divine will, rather than truly independent beings. Their power serves purposes they did not choose, advances agendas they may not fully understand, and binds them to an eternal existence of servitude from which there is no escape. They paid for their strength with everything that made them who they were, surrendering their humanity, their free will, and their chance at peace in exchange for power that will never truly belong to them. The demon princes stand as testament to the corrupting nature of chaos, living proof of what happens when ambition and hunger for power drive someone to make bargains with forces beyond mortal comprehension. They are incredibly strong, undeniably powerful, among the most dangerous entities any force in the galaxy might face. But they are also tragic figures. beings who gained everything they thought they wanted, only to discover that the price was far higher than they ever imagined, and that the power they gained came with chains that can never be broken. In the grim darkness of the far future, where there is only war and the laughter of thirsting gods, demon princes remain one of the greatest threats to all who oppose chaos. They will continue to stride across battlefields, continue to pursue their endless campaigns, continue to serve their dark masters until time itself comes to an end. They are powerful, terribly powerful, but perhaps the most profound truth about them is not their strength, but what they sacrifice to achieve it, and what that sacrifice says about the nature of power in a galaxy consumed by eternal conflict. If you found this deep dive into the power of demon princes fascinating, consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. We explore the darkest corners of Warhammer 40,000 lore, examining the entities, events, and forces that shape this universe of endless war. Join us as we continue our journey through the grim darkness of the far future. Oh, where there is only war, and every answer we find leads to deeper and more terrible questions.
I hope you guys enjoyed the story. Make sure to hit the subscribe, like, share button, whatever you want. Give me some feedback if there's any. And yeah, sleep well.